All right, let's get into it. Today, we're building a fortress. But not with stone and mortar. Nope. We're going to be using firewalls and encryption. We are diving deep into network security, the art of protecting your data in this wild digital world.
I just love this quote because it sets the stage perfectly. Think about it. The internet is this massive, sprawling, chaotic metropolis. You've got messages zipping around everywhere. And let's be honest, not all the neighborhoods are safe. So network security? That's our map, our walls, and our guards, making sure those messages get exactly where they need to go without being spied on or, worse, sabotaged.
So, before we can even think about building our fortress, we really need to understand the terrain. What exactly are we protecting? Well, it all starts with the most fundamental building block of the entire internet.
You see, everything you do online, sending an email, watching a video, you name it, gets broken down into these tiny little bundles called packets. The easiest way to think of them is like a digital postcard. You've got the header, which is basically the address telling it where to go, and then you have the payload, which is the actual message. These little packets are what we need to protect.
When you boil it all down, network security has three main jobs. First, it's the bouncer at the club door, controlling who gets in and who gets out. Second, it's the detective, walking the beat and spotting suspicious patterns. And third, it's the armored truck, making sure the data inside is kept safe and sound while it's in transit. Control, detect, and protect. That's the name of the game.
All right, now that we've got the basics down, let's get to the fun part, actually building our fortress. And to do that, we're going to use a time-tested military strategy. It's called defense in depth.
This right here, this is the absolute key to modern security. The whole idea is to accept that any single defense can fail. It just can. A wall can be breached, a guard can be fooled, but what if an attacker has to get through a moat, then a high wall, then an inner wall, and then past a bunch of roving guards? Well, their chances of success drop like a rock. It's all about creating layers of frustration for anyone trying to break in.
So here's what our blueprint is going to look like. The big outer wall, that's our firewall. The secure main gate for trusted travelers, that's going to be our VPN. We'll then divide the city into different districts using network segmentation. And of course, we need Watchtowers, our IDS and IPS systems, which will feed all their information to our central intelligence network. So let's start building, layer by layer, beginning with our first and maybe most important layer of defense. It's time for a tour of the essential tools in our digital fortress. The firewall. This is your city's main wall. It stands right at the border of your network, and its job is to inspect every single packet trying to get in or out. It has a rule book, right? And if a packet doesn't follow the rules, say it's trying to connect to a port it shouldn't be, it's not getting through. It's really that simple and that powerful.
But you know, not all walls are built the same. The very first firewalls were just simple packet filters. They just check the address on the postcard and that's it. Then we got stateful firewalls, which were a bit smarter. They could actually remember conversations. But the real game changer? That's the next-gen firewall. This guard doesn't just check your ID. They literally open your bag to see what you're bringing into the city. They look inside the payload itself.
And this brings us to a core security mindset, an absolute golden rule. Default deny. This is best practice 101. Instead of trying to keep a list of all the known bad things and blocking them, you do the opposite. You block everything by default, and you only open the door for traffic that is explicitly allowed. It's basically a guilty until proven innocent approach, and believe me, it is incredibly effective.
Okay, so the firewall is our wall, great. But what about our trusted citizens who are outside the city, like remote workers? Well, that's where the VPN comes in. Think of it like a secret, armored, underground tunnel that runs from their device directly into the city, completely bypassing all the chaotic public streets of the internet. Everything inside that tunnel is encrypted, so no one can peek inside.
Now, let's imagine the worst. An attacker actually gets past our main wall. Now what? Well, if your network is just one big open field, they've got access to everything. Game over. But with segmentation, you've divided your city into lockdown districts. So they might breach the outer wall, but now they're trapped in a small courtyard, and they still can't get to the really important stuff, like the treasury or the armory.
And the benefits of doing this? Oh, they're huge. First, segmentation dramatically reduces the blast radius, so it contains the damage if a breach happens. You can also put your public-facing servers in a special buffer zone, we call it a DMZ, to keep them separate from your crown jewels. Plus, this whole approach makes monitoring so much easier because you're cutting down on the noise, letting you focus on real threats.
Walls and gates are fantastic, but they're useless if you don't have eyes on them. That's where our watchtowers come in. An IDS, an intrusion detection system, that's the watchman. He sees something shady and screams, "Hey, we've got an intruder at the west wall." Now, an IPS, an intrusion prevention system, that's the archer standing right next to him who hears the shout and immediately fires an arrow to stop the threat. See the difference? One detects, the other prevents.
But here's the thing. None of these defenses can work in a vacuum. That's where a SIEM, that's Security Information and Event Management System, comes in. This is the city's intelligence headquarters. It takes reports from the firewall, the gates, the watchtowers, and it connects the dots. A failed login over here, a weird data transfer over there. On their own, they might mean nothing. But a SIEM sees the bigger picture, the pattern of a coordinated attack.
Okay, so we've built this pretty solid medieval fortress. It's strong. But what happens when our city suddenly doesn't have clear walls anymore? What happens when our citizens and our most valuable assets are spread out all over the world, in the cloud? Well, the old model has to adapt.
Yeah, this is a pretty famous saying in modern cybersecurity. What it means is that the idea of a single, hardened perimeter, a castle with a big moat around it, it's obsolete. It just doesn't work anymore. With cloud computing and remote work, there is no single inside and outside. The perimeter is, well, it's everywhere.
So, if the castle and moat is dead, what's the answer? Well, it's a philosophy called zero trust. And the principle is simple. Never trust, always verify. It just assumes that threats can exist both outside and inside the network. So it doesn't matter if you're already inside the old city walls. Every single time you try to access anything, you have to prove who you are and that you have permission. In this new model, every server and every application becomes its own tiny, heavily guarded fortress.
So let's do a quick recap of our grand tour. We've seen how all these different layers work together to create a really resilient defense. We've got our border control, our private tunnels, our internal containment zones, our watchtowers constantly looking for trouble, and finally our intelligence network putting all the pieces together. No single layer is perfect, but together, man, they create a formidable defense.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. As you look at your own digital world, your own company, your own home network, is it a sprawling suburb with open doors and windows? Or is it a well-defended fortress, built in layers, ready to protect what's most important to you? The choice of how you build is yours. Thanks for joining this explainer.